Now we're going to move on to our top 5 movie psychopaths. Now, there's a lot to choose from, it must be said. An awful lot of movie psychopaths. Like just looking at the majority of horror movies, they tend to have, a psychopath of some description in it. Slasher movies, even thrillers, films that aren't out and out horrors, just your regular thrillers, most have psychopaths. I could do an endless list on how many great psychopaths there are out there in movies, and it actually kills me to not put some of them on this list. But when I was doing it, I went with what I felt were the stone cold classics, the ones that have stood the test of time, have become iconic really in their own right. Some of them not as much as others, but certainly a few on this list, definitely. Yeah,
I kind of tackled my list a little bit differently. I looked at it, and the big ones are the big ones. You can't argue with them, that they are fantastic performances. There's a certain notoriety about them for a good reason. What I did with my list is I tried to choose performances that stuck with me, that are a little bit different. I looked up the definition of psychopath, what it entails, and some movies have characters that don't initially jump out at you as that kind of person, but I felt as if they belong. There will be a couple of big ones in here, and hopefully a couple of surprises of never thought about that. So who's going to go first, Brian?
Go on, I'll go first. Okay, so number 5, I don't know if my number 5 fits the bill of the psychopath or the sociopath. And there's a very fine line, I guess, that divides the two, but it's a bit too late now to change my mind, so I'm gonna stick with it. So for my number 5, I've gone with Michael Douglas as Defense in Falling Down, a film that I really love. I think it's Joel Schumacher's best film. I think it's highly underrated, and it's just, this guy stuck in traffic at the beginning of the film, as we've all been, on one of the hottest days of the year. He just says, that's it, I've had enough. He gets out of the car, leaves his car behind, and then blazes a trail across the city to get back to his wife and his daughter, who have a restraining order put out against him, so he shouldn't even be going there to begin with. But yeah, he's determined to get a birthday present home to his daughter, but people just keep getting in his way. And because this is the day where he said, that's it, I've had enough. If you get in his way, you're going to be making a mistake, and things just keep escalating and escalating until there's no going back. I love the performance by Michael Douglas. I love the character. I love the fact that I sympathise with him in many ways, because a lot of the situations he gets in, you kind of feel he's justified, like the shopkeeper being a complete douche with him over like a couple of pence, or a couple of cents because it's American, over a drink. It's so hot, you can see the sweat pouring off him, and there's no charity in this guy at all. He won't let him off just for a few measly cents for this drink. And then he's got these gangsters who attack him just because he's on their land, and then you've got this racist a-hole military shop owner who makes the mistake of thinking they're the same. And then something as simple as going into a burger joint, going into like I think it's called Whammy Burger or something, and you see the poster with a really succulent burger, and then he gets this sweaty bun that's been pressed down. It's this minging thin burger in a bag, and it's just like the little rant that he has over it. And it's just the whole thing, you're almost with him every step of the way, and it's like, it is a film that calls attention, I think, to just how close all of us are to stepping over that line, to becoming what this guy is, you know. So yeah, that's why I love it, and that's why I love the performance and this guy, just because he's so relatable. So yeah, defense from falling down.
Yep, I I had to put Silence of the Lambs on my list, number 5, for Buffalo Bill, rather than Hannibal. The movie has 2 psychopaths in it. Hannibal is the more operatic of them, the more performance, the one that is intelligent. But I want to go for the baseless animal, the one that will torture somebody for days, simply so that it can hack the skin off of someone that is so damaged that doesn't see anything wrong with that plans out these horrific attacks on these women. You know, whereas there is a certain aspect to Hannibal that he's doing it for a purpose. He wants to eat the people. This guy is just, you know, a complete animal. I think it's a fantastic performance by Ted Levine, because he's not in the movie a lot, but when you do see him, you do get constant feeling of threat, unease, and just wariness, which is always a good sign of a psychopath.
Yeah. I've stated in other places in the past, and I still stick to it, that in many ways I think that what Ted Levine does with Buffalo Bill is much more remarkable than what Anthony Hopkins does with Lecter. And actually, if I'd have put Silence of the Lambs on this list, it would have been for Buffalo Bill as well. I think it's a much more committed performance, given some of the stuff he does, you know, the whole tucking the tail between the legs scene, and it's just like, literally, yeah, Anthony Hopkins gets to stand in a room for most of his work and put on a bizarre, shall we say, voice. It's still a performance I love, you know. He's got the absolute cold-eyed, you know, stare of steel. His eyes in that film, what he does with them, is just really intense. But yeah, I've always thought that, for me, Buffalo Bill is the scarier of the two. He seems more real to me rather than a pantomime villain. So
exactly, when you look at it, you get a realistic serial killer, and you get a performance of a serial killer.
Yeah. Okay, so my number 4 is Jack Torrance from The Shining. It's Jack Nicholson on full-on Jack Nicholson mode. It's arguable whether or not he's ever been better, to be honest. You know, seeing him completely lose it with his wife, that scene where they're walking up the stairs, and she's swinging the bat at him. Brilliant performance from him, and just a really memorable role. Seeing this guy who has a darkness in him right from the start, to be honest. You know, I've done an essay on this over on one of my YouTube channels. Just the fact that this isn't a story about a good man who becomes corrupted. It's a story about a man who already had darkness within him, and that's why he was able to be turned so easily. You know, that's, if you think about the hotel as this haunting character that tries to twist people and bring them into the darkness, it's only able to do so with people like Jack, who have that darkness in them already. A really good portrayal of a psychopath, and just a fun one to watch. Just seeing him lose his stuff is just a blast to watch every time you watch The Shining. So
one of my friends told me the next time I was going to watch The Shining, and I did this, he's like, don't think of it as Jack Nicholson becoming psychotic during it. Think of it as the movie starts, he's already psychotic. He's crazy. And thinking about that, even when he goes for the job interview, and he's sitting back and the eyes are wide, and he's like, yeah. And you're going, this guy is already broken before he even gets here. This is just a catalyst that just gives him a little nudge to become homicidal along with it. Yeah,
I mean, that's why he takes the job in the first place. He wants the isolation. He doesn't even like his family. He's not a man who particularly loves his family. You get little clues to that in some of his behaviour, but he's taken this job on so that he can be isolated and distance himself from as many people as possible. So, yeah.
Okay, so I was having I think of some alternative psychopaths, and I was reading up on what makes a psychopath, and it's somebody that's thinks they're smarter than other people, can manipulate other people, can do things to other people that most people couldn't stomach doing, and things like that. So I decided to put on my list number 4, Hard Candy, in particular Hayley Stark, the girl of it, who is the heroine of the piece, but goes in this place that it goes into the supposed lion's den with a plan in her head. Now, I don't want to spoil this movie for anybody that hasn't seen it, because I think it's fantastic, and I think a lot of the time the subject matter puts people off from watching this one, but I think it is a twisting tale directed by David Slade, who did a fantastic job. 2 actors, 2 outstanding performances, and this is a twisting, turning tale that will keep you guessing and surprising at every turn. I wish I could say more.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. Yeah. Okay, so my number 3 is Norman Bates from Psycho, obviously. Just the epitome, really, of the movie Psychopath. Pretty much the one that started it all in many ways. In the same year, 1960, you had Peeping Tom released as well. So kind of those 2 movies really gave birth, I think, to the slasher genre, although it took many years for it to really become a thing. But the thing with Norman Bates is that you feel sorry for the guy. He's trapped essentially in his own body with his mother, or this other personality of his mother, and it's an absolute classic of a film. But I think that Anthony Perkins really sells you on Norman Bates. Just this kind of everyday kid, bit of a mama's boy, soft-hearted, good-natured, but deep down there's a real darkness working within him, and it's just it's brought out throughout the film in a really expert way by Hitchcock, and like I say, that performance by Perkins. So great stuff.
Yeah, my number 3 from 7 is John Doe. And the reason I put this one on there is because, well, this is a character that you only see in the last 5 minutes of the movie, but by the time you get to him, you've seen what he has done, and what he's done is some of the most reprehensible things I've ever seen done to people before. The various sins that he's put upon people are disgusting, stomach churning, and makes you wonder what kind of person could or would do this. And when you get to the end and you see the person, it's just a guy. It's not a monster. It's an unassuming looking guy who has put this plan in place. It's measured, it's not spur of the moment, it's well thought out, and it's well put into action, and that is a horrifying version of a psychopath.
Yeah.
Turns out it wasn't much of a performance, really. I'm quite gutted now that I didn't put that on my list. That it would make my top 5. See, this is the thing. You do these lists, and it's like, I mean, that's an obvious one to me. How did I not even think of that? How did I not see that? I looked along my shelves, and that should have jumped out at me. But what I love about John Doe in 7 is that he's kind of right. His murders are making this statement
You know, there's one point when he says in the film that you can't just tell people these days. You got to hit them over the head with a baseball bat, essentially, just to let it sink in. And it's just this idea that actually the human race is just evil, just filled with sin and darkness, and what he's doing here is holding a mirror up to that darkness in the hope that it's going to sink in. Like in his mind, he's here to do some good. He's here to change the world for the better. But it's just a really, really twisted way of going about it. You know, so it's great stuff. Yeah, really great choice. Gutted that I didn't put it on my number 5, but anyway, my number 2 is John Ryder from The Hitcher, a film that we've reviewed before on Brits on Flicks. I love this guy because you don't know anything about him. He's a force of nature. You know, it's like we get little hints about what's going on underneath, but nothing really overt, just these kind of subtle hints here and there that give you this idea that he's a man who essentially wants to die. He wants someone to kill him. You know, it's like he's looking for that person, that adversary who will do what needs to be done to put him down. He knows he's not right in the head, I guess. He knows that he needs to be stopped, but he's going to damn well take as many people out with him as he can before that person does stop him. And it's just, that's all it is. It's that simple. You know, the film starts, a guy picks him up, and he's a psychopath right from the get-go. And he just goes about this campaign of terror on this one guy throughout the rest of the film until he stops him. And there's something almost demonic about him. You know, there's the fact that they can't find anything on this guy. You know, they run his prints, nothing. His name, nothing. Don't even know if it's a real name. It could be an alias. It's come from nowhere. He's going to nowhere. It's just like, yeah, who is this guy? We don't know. We know barely anything else about him by the time the film's finished than we did at the start. And that's what makes him intriguing. Because it could be anybody. It could be you, it could be me, it could be, you know, just someone who's had a bad day and snapped, or someone who's got cancer, someone who hates the world, whatever. It doesn't matter. You build the picture, because that's just what they do with the film. They don't fill in all the gaps. So yeah, but in a good way. You know, like I said in our review of White of the Eye, that film was kind of didn't fill in enough gaps. This one doesn't fill in enough gaps, but in the right way, not the wrong way. So yeah.
My number 2 is The House That Jack Built, with our titular character Jack. This is a recent release, and it's one that really, really made an impression. Very rarely do you have a serial killer as your main character, let alone someone who is the narrator for the movie, so we get everything from his thought perspective. Now, it really gives you an insight into what he's thinking and why he's thinking it, and how it escalates his actions, how he reasons things. There's a fantastic monologue in it where he talks about the urge to killing, and it's animated as well, and it's great, and it has this character walking along a street at night, and he says, as you kill somebody, you're directly under a street light, and as you walk away, the feeling's still there until you get to the midpoint where it starts to build again as he gets towards the next street light. And it gives you a understanding to what he's thinking, what he's feeling, and the actions that he takes throughout the movie. And it kind of puts a twisted perspective on it, because you know that everything that he is doing is deplorable, destructive, but you can understand his reasoning behind it. You know, you can understand his thought process, and I think that was a really, really fantastic insight into a mind of a psychopath.
Okay. I've not seen that one. I do have it, so I will get around to it at some point. I can't say I've been the biggest fan of Lars von Trier in the past.
Nope. Same.
But right, okay. All right. So my number one, I'm pretty sure this isn't going to come as a surprise to anyone who knows me. But yeah, Heath Ledger's Joker from The Dark Knight. Dark Knight is my favourite movie. Much of that is because of Heath Ledger's Joker. Not only the Joker, though, of course. I do think it's a great film on every level. But let's face it, the thing people most remember is Heath Ledger's Joker. It is just... Well, it won him an Oscar, and I think it would have won him an Oscar even if he hadn't have died. I genuinely believe that, because it was such an amazing performance. Again, he's one of these whirlwind characters. He comes in, you don't really know a right lot about him. At one point, it looks like, oh, we are going to know something about him, because he starts dishing his story out. And the first time I saw the film, actually, I didn't like that moment when he, he's got the knife in Gamble's mouth and he starts giving a bit of backstory, and I'm like, oh no, don't do that. It's just, the less we know about this guy, the better. And I was a bit disappointed when he did that little speech. I was like, oh, all right. But then, not so long after, we get another story, completely different story, and it's like multiple choice history with this guy, and we suddenly realise that, okay, great, we know what Nolan's doing with this guy, with this character. It doesn't matter what happened to him. All we know is that something happened, something bad. He's the flip side of the same coin to Bruce. To Batman, both of these guys at some time in their life had their worst day that pushed them to the limit. And with one of these guys, it turned him into a vigilante who wanted to help his city. And with the other, it turned him into a raving lunatic who wanted to watch the world burn. And just, doing these little stories to different people, having the Joker give his, alternate back histories kind of thing, just beautifully puts that out there. And beyond that, he's just one of the most fun to watch. The pencil trick, the way he acts on the truck when they're in the big chase sequence. Just when Batman gets knocked off the bike, and it's just, and again, he's another one of those characters who it's almost like he wants to die. A bit like, there's a lot of similarities, I feel, between Heath Ledger's Joker and Rutger Hauer in The Hitcher. Not necessarily in performance, but just in what we know about them, who they are. They, like I say, they come in like a whirlwind, they cause chaos. That seems to be their reason for existing, and then they go. And like I say, we don't know much more about them once the film is over with. But I feel like we do know a bit more about Joker than we do with John Ryder. But again, it's that thing where we don't know exactly what it is. All we know is he's had a bad day, the worst day of his life, and it's enough to make him snap. And now he's just a crazy clown who's a real joy to watch, thanks to that performance. So yeah,
absolutely,
that's my favourite movie psychopath.
Okay, my favourite movie psychopath is Tyler Durden in The Narrator from Fight Club. Because this is a very charismatic character, both of them the same, one type of thing. And you get two flips of a coin, but both are as bad as one another. Performed by Edward Norton and Brad Pitt. Tyler Durden was one of those force of natures. Now, how often do you find a psychopath that becomes a staple for a generation, where people actually take these ramblings of a madman, put them on t-shirts or quote them? The type of thing that he's poking fun at in the movie, people took to heart and actually started preaching that as though it was kind of gospel. This is a psychopath that is highly intelligent, that knows his audience, that pushes all the buttons, and even after the fact that we know what goes on, people still buy into it. People still treat it like a cult-like figure. It's fantastic. You know, and you don't.
Which is it kind of says something really about the society we live in, because actually when you get to the end of the film, the narrator has to reject Tyler Durden. He has to reject what Tyler Durden stands for. You know, at the start of the film, he's living in a measly existence, a mundane existence. And what's the flip side to that? Well, the flip side to that is Tyler Durden. You go from one extreme to the other. And the film is actually saying that we can't exist like this. We can't exist in the mundane 9 to 5 the way we've been going. And but we can't just say, let's blow caution to the wind and have utter chaos and be like Tyler Durden. No, that there has to be a middle ground somewhere. We have to reject both in order to do something new, the proper path kind of thing. That's the way I've always seen it anyway. So it's funny, and you know, you talk about how people quote him all the time. They do the exact same thing with the Joker. You know, how when Dark Knight came out, how many people were quoting those Joker lines? And there's a when you get a psychopath right in a movie, you have to give them an ideology that makes sense, that people can kind of root for, and it's only by their behaviour that kind of that brings their ideology crashing down. You know, and it's like, but yeah, to me that seems to be the best ingredient for the best psychopaths is to give them an ideology that is very. It's just enticing, I guess. Enticing. But yeah, sorry, I cut you off. But
no, you're fine. You're fine. I think I was just thinking there actually that that's 10 different psychopaths we've got there, all pretty fantastic. I think we've got 2 good lists. I don't think there's any arguments for any of those 10 at all.
And I could make a completely different one. You know, it's like, I think Joker would stay on it. He's definitely going to be my number one. But like I say, when you brought up John Doe from Seven, it's like, of course, you know. And there's a few others, kind of unsung ones that, you know, like The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, the woman in that. I just because we've not given any female psychopaths their due. You know, the woman from Misery, you know, absolutely nuts. Yeah. But so yeah,
I think if there was one that I wanted to put on my list, but I was a little bit unsure of because I'm not a biggest fan of the movie, but I think the performance is outstanding, is Michael Rooker in Henry.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Great performance. I hate the movie. I think the one that narrowly missed out on being on my list was Christian Bale in American Psycho. Just like I say, I could do a completely different list and I would be just as satisfied with it as I am with this one. I'm actually quite dissatisfied with my list now, to be honest. But that's the way you go. There is an absolute abundance of movie psychopaths. So
absolutely,
yeah.